The story begins at a quiet school in Paris, where Sid is hanging out with his friend Pierre while watching a group of girls. Pierre can't help but tease him, because it's more than obvious that Sid is completely in love with Angie, the new girl in class. Trying to get her attention, Sid decides to do a skateboard trick. He lands the jump, but loses control and crashes into a trash can. Instead of going badly, the fall actually works in his favor, as Angie walks over to return his skateboard. After getting back on his feet, Sid takes the opportunity and offers to show her around the city. She likes the idea and, excited, asks for his number. But there's a problem. Sid doesn't have a phone. Pierre quickly jumps in and makes up an excuse, saying Sid canceled his number because of a past relationship. Angie says goodbye and tells him to call her once he gets a new phone. Later, at home, Sid asks his mom for money to buy something important. Even though she doesn't fully understand what's going on, she gives him everything she has at the moment. That same night, Sid rushes to his job at a restaurant, where his boss scolds him for being late. Sid tries to smooth things over, apologizes, and asks for an advance on his salary because he urgently needs it. But his boss couldn't care less and, to make things worse, hands him a fake €100 bill while mocking him. The next day, Sid goes to an antique shop looking for a cheap phone. The seller shows him several options, but when Sid says he only has €30, the man remembers he has a model stored away. He goes to get it and presents a very eye-catching, fully customized phone. While explaining its supposed features, he claims that although it used to cost €500, he can let it go for just 30 without thinking twice. Sid agrees, but as soon as he picks it up, he realizes it doesn't work. The seller casually admits he already knew that and says he can at least use it to show off. Annoyed, Sid stares at the device, until suddenly the phone starts ringing on its own. Both of them are shocked to see that it actually works. The seller tries to take it back, but Sid is quicker and runs out of the shop. Minutes later in the schoolyard, Sid meets up with Pierre and, while looking at Angie, proudly shows off his new phone. Convinced he finally has a chance, he walks up to her and her group to tell them they can talk now. But when the girls see the strange design of the phone, they start making fun of him and walk away, along with Angie, who even makes comments about his financial situation. Pierre tries to cheer him up, saying that girls like that only care about money, and the two head to class. In the lab, Virgil and his group start picking on Sid and Pierre, which quickly turns into a fight right in the classroom. The teacher steps in and restores order, but the mocking continues, with Angie and her friends laughing at everything. Suddenly, Sid's phone activates on its own and starts dialing. The call reaches Margot, one of Angie's friends. Confused, she answers, but all she hears is a strange, almost demonic voice that begins to influence her behavior. Without realizing it, Margot turns on a Bunsen burner and brings it close to Clemencia's hair, setting it on fire. Angie screams in panic at the sight, and the classroom erupts into chaos. Students scatter while the teacher manages to put out the flames with a fire extinguisher. Later, the principal speaks with Margot alongside an investigator, and after reviewing what happened, they discover that the call came from a private number, impossible to trace. With no clear leads, they decide to drop the case for now and send the students home. The next day, Sid is in his room, talking to himself and venting about how much he likes Angie when he suddenly notices something very strange. His phone is on a video call with Angie. The weirdest part is that he doesn't even have her number. And even though she overhears what Sid was saying about her, she pretends like nothing happened. Taking advantage of the moment, he builds up the courage and asks her out. But he immediately gets nervous, runs out of words, and ends up hanging up. After doing so, he starts exploring the rest of the phone's features and realizes that it was this very device that called Margot the day before. That's when he begins to suspect there's something strange about it. Later in class, Margot tries to apologize to Clemencia for what happened in the lab, but Clemencia wants nothing to do with her and completely ignores her. Meanwhile, Sid and Pierre keep talking about the mysterious calls until the teacher, fed up with them not paying attention, throws a piece of chalk at one of them and forces Sid to answer a question. At that exact moment, the phone displays the answer on its screen. Without thinking, Sid says it out loud and gets it right. But the teacher believes he cheated using the phone, so he takes it away and throws it. When class ends, Sid rushes to pick it up and is surprised to see that it's completely intact, without a single scratch. That same night, the teacher stays behind grading exams when he receives a call from the mysterious phone. As soon as he answers, he falls into a kind of trance. The next morning, Sid wakes up and sees a hologram of a birthday cake in front of him, projected by the phone. Excited, he blows out the candles as if it were real and starts to realize that his phone has abilities far beyond normal. He then goes to find Pierre and together they head to school. On the way, they talk about what the phone can do and decide to use it to their advantage, especially since Sid doesn't want to spend his birthday being punished by the teacher. Then, the phone pulls another trick. It calls the secretary and alters Sid's voice so it sounds like Professor Mizzo. Thanks to that, he manages to get his punishment cancelled, and even orders the cafeteria food to be changed to something much better. At that point, Sid is fully convinced that he has something magical in his hands. Curious to test how far the phone's power goes, the boys go to a skateboard shop to get revenge on a seller who treated them badly. Using the phone, they make the man start acting like different animals as he moves around the store, causing a total mess. After that, they walk out loaded with purchases, realizing they can now do whatever they want. Meanwhile, back at school, a cleaner enters the teacher's classroom and finds him lying on the floor with his mouth full of chalk. Frightened, she tries to help him, but as she does, the man spits out a huge amount of chalk, leaving her even more terrified. Later, at a nightclub, Sid and Pierre continue using the phone's power to get back at those who have made them suffer. But in the middle of it all, Pierre asks Sid to lend him the phone because he has a family problem. Sid doesn't like the idea, but he still gives it to him. However, the phone simply doesn't work in Pierre's hands. Frustrated, he throws it into a glass of water and walks away angrily, leaving Sid furious. The next day, they meet again and manage to make up. But right at that moment, Pierre notices that some troublemakers have put up a fake picture of his mother on the school wall. He quickly tries to take it down so no one else can see it. At the same time, a group of bikers steals Angie's iPod. Seeing what's happening, Sid doesn't hesitate and chases after them on his skateboard, with Angie joining him in the pursuit. Meanwhile, Virgil, the leader of the troublemakers, also decides to get involved to help Angie and drives off to chase the thieves. During the chase, Sid and Angie get stuck in traffic and nearly lose sight of them. That brief delay allows the criminals to gain distance again. Not wanting to lose them, Sid takes a shortcut on his skateboard and tries to cut them off, while Virgil gets closer and closer in his car. But just before they can block their path, one of the thieves receives a call from Sid's phone. The voice on the other end orders him to place his hands on the wheel in a dangerous way, causing them to lose control. They end up crashing into a construction site and are completely covered in cement. Shortly after, Sid and Angie catch up with the thieves. They manage to knock them down, but Angie, filled with rage, starts beating one of them non-stop. Sid tries to calm things down before it gets worse, and at that moment the police arrive to break up the fight. He quickly explains that those men are the thieves. The criminals try to run away, but the officers chase after them. Meanwhile, the commander decides to let Sid and Angie go, since they recovered the iPod. The next day, Pierre tries to make Sid come to his senses. He tells him he should get rid of that phone because more and more people are being affected because of it. But Sid doesn't care. To prove how useful it is, he uses the phone to call his history teacher and through that strange hypnosis, gets the answers to the next exam. This leaves Pierre impressed, although it's clearly not a good sign. Things get even more complicated when Virgil and his group, who had been listening the whole time, intercept them. They want those answers at all costs, so they pressure Sid to talk. Even Clemencia steps in, revealing that he had promised to share them with Angie. After that, the troublemakers leave, and it's time for the exam. The teacher shows up wearing ridiculous clothes, another consequence of the phone's hypnosis, while the students take the test. Later in the schoolyard, Sid and Angie spend time together and grow closer. She enjoys his company and ends up inviting him to the movies. Sid, happy, immediately accepts. Back home, he starts getting ready for the date and, wanting to look better, decides to remove his braces, which gives him more confidence. Shortly after, Pierre shows up to remind him that they were supposed to go to a concert together that same night. But Sid tells him he can't because he has his date with Angie. This really upsets Pierre. He feels betrayed and tells him he doesn't even recognize his friend anymore, that he's never seen him act like this. Sid, on the other hand, stands his ground and says they've always been different. Pierre insists that, despite everything, they've always supported each other because they both have problems at home, and that was exactly the reason for their friendship. After the argument, Pierre leaves angrily. Although Sid is affected, he decides to move forward with his plans and keeps getting ready. Before leaving, he talks to his mother, who excitedly tells him she received recognition at work for her effort. Sid is very happy for her and says goodbye, while she wishes him a great date with Angie. As he goes downstairs, the child his mother takes care of stops him to play. But Sid, seeing his hands covered in chocolate, gets irritated and yells at him to leave him alone. At that moment, the child's mother asks if his boss knows he's taking the night off. Annoyed, Sid replies that he doesn't care and says that if he doesn't like it, he should just disappear. What Sid doesn't know is that his infernal phone heard everything, and at that very moment, his boss at the restaurant receives a call. As soon as Sid's boss answers, he falls into the same hypnotic state as the others. Without thinking, he walks into the kitchen, places several ingredients around his head, and seconds later heads straight toward the fryer, where he ends up dunking his head inside. The scene is so shocking that everyone in the place starts screaming as the man collapses lifeless to the floor. Later, Sid arrives at Angie's house for their date and gets a big surprise. She is the daughter of Mike Bullitt, one of the most famous skaters in the world. Even so, everything continues normally, and they head out in a luxurious sports cart that Sid got thanks to the infernal phone. As they drive through the city, they pass near Virgil and his group, who recognize the car as one that had been stolen from one of their fathers. Furious, they decide to go after Sid. At the movie theater, the couple is watching a horror film when Sid realizes he left his phone in the car. He runs outside to get it, but is intercepted by Virgil and his friends. They beat him up, take back the vehicle, and leave Sid lying on the ground. Minutes later, Sid returns to Angie and tells her what happened. He also confesses the truth. Everything he did was just to pretend he had money and impress her. But Angie makes it clear that she never cared about that and that she still wants to continue the date. So they go back into the theater and keep watching the movie, while Sid tries not to think about the fact that his dangerous phone is still out there. Meanwhile, Virgil and the others celebrate getting the car back. At that moment, Franklin, one of them, notices that Sid's phone is receiving a call and decides to answer it. But it's a huge mistake. The phone does its thing again. It hypnotizes him and forces him to jump out of the moving car. Franklin falls onto the road and, before he can react, he is run over by a truck, dying instantly. Later, when Sid and Angie leave the theater, they are stopped by the police and taken to the station. There, Virgil and his friend David explode in anger and accuse Sid of being responsible for all the chaos that's been happening. To keep things from getting out of control, the officers decide to release the troublemakers and begin questioning Sid about the stolen car and how he managed to control so many people. But before he can explain anything, the office phone rings. The officer answers and falls into the same hypnotic state. Under that control, he destroys all the investigation files and then lets Sid and Angie go as if nothing had happened. As they leave the station, Sid overhears the officers talking about his boss's death. At that moment, everything hits him. The phone isn't just causing trouble, it's killing people. Terrified, he decides to distance himself from Angie and fix this once and for all. Sid tries to destroy the phone, but nothing works. So he makes a decision. He goes down to some catacombs and throws the phone into a shaft over 160 meters deep, hoping that will be the end of it. The next day, Angie gathers her friends in her basement to try to understand what's going on. After putting all the pieces together, They reach a disturbing conclusion. The phone seems to have a mind of its own, and Sid might be more of a victim than the one responsible. Meanwhile, Sid is visited by some workers who tell him they found the phone he threw away the night before. Even though he doesn't want to see it again, he also doesn't want them to be in danger, so he decides to take it back. Shortly after, Pierre shows up. Sid is surprised, but also relieved to see that his friend is no longer upset. Pierre tells him he understands everything now, that the real problem was never Sid, but that infernal phone. At that moment, the phone rings again. Sid is now determined to end it all, so together with Pierre, they prepare to face whatever comes next. He tells his friend that if he starts acting strange, he should smash the phone with a vase without hesitation. Sid tries to convince the device that he doesn't want any part of this anymore, but the entity responds in a disturbing way. It tells him it will be easier for him to love it if he has no one else to love. After that, the call ends. For a moment, nothing seems to happen, but Pierre panics and, without thinking, hits Sid, knocking him to the ground. Suddenly, the phone at Angie's house rings. Clemencia answers and starts crying, but it turns out to be a joke. It was just a friend's mother asking for something unimportant. Everything seems to calm down for a second. However, shortly after, while they are in the kitchen, Margot receives a call from her mother. Or so she thinks. In reality, it's another trap from the infernal phone. After handing her phone to Virgil, Margot begins to act strangely. She opens drawers, grabs knives, and starts stabbing herself. No one can stop her and, despite the pain, she keeps going until she collapses lifeless in front of everyone. The chaos doesn't stop. Virgil, completely out of control, throws a pot of boiling water at Clemencia, killing her instantly from the burns. Desperate, David reacts and strikes Virgil with a frying pan, taking him down as well after several blows. Angie, completely in shock, hears her phone ringing. But before she can answer, her dog snatches it away, as if it's also being controlled. David tries to calm the animal down, but fails and ends up being violently attacked. Terrified, Angie runs to the second floor and hides. Shortly after, Sid and Pierre arrive at the house and find an even more disturbing scene. Angie's mother is also possessed and attacking her. To save her, the boys stop her by hitting her with their skateboards. Without wasting time, they decide to go to the family's printing shop to destroy the phone once and for all. But on the way, Virgil appears, or what's left of him, and reveals that he killed the dog. Sid confronts him to buy time while Pierre and Andy run toward the machine. The problem is that it requires a password. As they try to guess it, Sid keeps fighting Virgil, who now uses a chainsaw to attack him. Finally, they manage to activate the machine and begin crushing the phone. Sid dodges an attack and makes Virgil hit the electrical system, causing him to get electrocuted. But even destroyed, the phone keeps working. With no other option, they rush to the school to try to destroy it with chemicals. However, it's already too late. The device has taken control of the principal, who forces a teacher to answer a call. Angie knocks him down with a blow, but she can't prevent the worst. The teacher ingests a substance from the lab that destroys her body. Now, everything spirals completely out of control. A crowd of possessed people invades the place, forcing Sid and Pierre to run. The school is surrounded, so they take refuge in the lab, where they try to freeze the phone with liquid nitrogen. The principal appears again and tries to stop them, while the horde breaks doors and windows to get in. Angie does everything she can to submerge the phone in the tank, but the principal stops her, even losing an arm in the process. In the middle of the chaos, all the possessed people throw themselves at them, but Pierre manages to grab the phone. Sid tosses him the nitrogen tank, and at that exact moment, Pierre hears the device's voice trying to control him. Even so, he resists. With all his willpower, he manages to freeze the phone, which finally shuts down. Sometime later, Sid, Pierre, and Angie wake up among the bodies of the possessed people. Surprised, Sid asks Pierre how he managed to do it, and he reveals the key. He had been wearing ear protection the whole time, preventing himself from fully hearing the phone's voice. Realizing that it's all over, the three of them hug, relieved. Sometime later, they travel by boat out into the open sea and throw the tank with the frozen phone into the ocean, making sure no one else will ever suffer because of that infernal object again. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know what you think about this movie.